the advocates piece is so important because you don't just want the black players walking off the pitch. You want every single person and the staff and the coach members to say this is not appropriate and we are not going to play any more games until this is looked into properly.
I hate that cliche. The form book goes out the window in the... No. It's untrue. Most derbies go with the form team.
Let's be honest, guys. We need a black bank. We need the finance of Africa or Jamaica or Caribbean in just to come and offer us that product, a building that we can walk into and see people like us.
Hello again, welcome to the Whisper It Loudly podcast. This week on the show, the Ballon d'Or, the North London Derby, and a very special guest in the studio. Mahari Hay is a director in the financial services who'll be answering our questions and getting involved in the general debate. We want you to as well. We're going to kick off with the North London Derby because there have been some big omissions over the international break. Arsenal could be robbed of a huge influential part of their team. No Declan Rice, no Martin Odegaard. What do they do to kind of fill that void and score the goals and maybe inflict the pain on Spurs that they're back to inflicting right now as they compete for the title and Spurs compete for the top four? Where do we think the game is going to be won and lost, first of all, at the weekend, Mahari?
So I'm thinking, I grew up in Tottenham, coming over from Jamaica, grew up in North London, grew up in Tottenham, but there was always that little bit of an affiliation with Wrighty, and just in and around my household, they loved Ian Wright. So there was always that battle with where you're from and versus the type.
So you're a closet Arsenal fan?
No. We'll get into my team.
Come true,
really.
brethren. Come true.
We'll get into my team. But me, looking at current state of play, I'm leaning towards Arsenal.
Still.
Right? Regardless of Odegaard not being there, regardless of Declan Rice being there, I think there's just something that Arsenal have at the moment, right? And they've gotten better over the last couple of years. They've been able to kind of go into this particular match with a bit of confidence, right? And just kind of really step up and really kind of deliver. So I don't want to call it, but I'm leaning towards Arsenal. I don't know what you guys think anyway. Well, Jordan, you screaming out Arsenal.
I'm going to him last because I think he's less than objective, shall we say. So I'm going to go to Hugh first because Arsenal superb on set pieces. Spurs very weak on set pieces, concede lots of goals from set pieces.
It's not going to come down to set pieces, so I'm not too concerned about that.
You don't think so?
No, I don't think so. Tottenham have been unlucky not to win all three games, in my opinion. They've definitely lacked a cutting edge, and that's been the difference for them. They've dominated every game. I said this recently because I know a lot of people were down on Spurs after the last defeat against Newcastle, and obviously the points dropped in the first game away at Leicester, but they dominated the game at Newcastle, dominated the game away at Leicester. Their home game against Everton, they won 4-0. And I did say to a friend, how many teams in the Premier League can you say have dominated, regardless of results, all three games that they've played? So yes, Tottenham obviously have issues. They're not the perfect side. I never expected them to be. Otherwise, we'd be talking about them in terms of winning the Premier League. Like we know they have deficiencies, but they also have more than enough there to get a result against Arsenal, particularly if Arsenal are missing some key players. So,
but I mean, listen, I'm not in Jordan's camp by any stretch of the imagination, as our viewers know who watch this show on a regular basis. But I have to lean towards him and say that even though they are missing those players, defensively, Arsenal are so strong and have been for the last couple of seasons. They work incredibly hard on maintaining.
But I think my issue is actually around just dominating the possession of the ball and controlling the game, which I think Arsenal definitely would have done if Rice and Odegaard were in central midfield. Without Rice and Odegaard in central midfield, I don't know if they have. Firstly, they're missing their conductor in Odegaard, who runs the tempo of the game pretty much for them, even though he plays in more of an attacking midfield position. And then you've got Rice, who is just the steel in there, if you like, and probably the other player who really gets them going. So it will be interesting to see how they line up, what exactly they do to kind of combat this. I imagine we're going to see one of the fullbacks pushed into the holding midfield area because Rice isn't there. It's not something that's uncommon to Arsenal anyway, and it's just about where the other midfield players land now. I expect Havertz might drop back in a little bit deeper, which will be intriguing to see because he's been in good form, obviously, and certainly in amongst the goals and assists. So do you lose something in terms of what's been working well for Arsenal if he plays a little bit deeper? Loads of interesting things, but I don't see the game as a foregone conclusion.
Okay, Jordan, what would you do? What will you do? What do you think Arteta will do?
What I would do is not what Hugh just suggested. I think bringing Kai Havertz back into midfield would be a car crash. Having Rice and Odegaard.
Why? That's quite a strong thing to say. Why?
He's on form up top. And I think the way... This game for me is really interesting about how Postecoglou approaches it, because we know he likes his high line, and we also know he's pretty much doubling down on sticking with that. If that's the case, this could be a replica of when we went there last year. They were high. We didn't even play well, and we were 3 up at half time. But we won the game because we had Havertz dropping deep and over the top. We just killed him on the high line. I think Sterling starts in this game. I think he should start in this game. And if you're going to do a high line with Sterling and Saka wide and Havertz dropping deep with the flick-ons and feeding them, you're going to get killed. So I don't see this as a catastrophe with the absences of Odegaard and Rice, as many people do. It's clearly a loss. I actually think Odegaard is the bigger loss than Rice. Rice has not started the season very, very well. So although he's a brilliant player, I don't think we should assume that if Rice was playing, he would play well.
Jordan,
but you're stronger with
I expect to win.
You're stronger with Rice.
We are, but I still think Jorginho, Partey, and actually Wanyeri, I'd throw the kid in. That is the midfield with our brilliant defence and our fast wingers. I expect to win the game.
that's a big game to throw the kid into.
It is, but there's no other creative force we have after Odegaard that plays centrally. Ranieri's the only kid, and the fact that he let Emile Smith-Rowe and Vieira leave and didn't bring in a replacement says to me Arteta thinks the kid is the adequate replacement for Odegaard.
Okay, let's go around the room, see if we can get some score predictions. Mahari?
I'm going 2-1 Arsenal.
Hugh?
1-1.
Yeah, I think I might go. I think it might be a score draw. I'm going to go with 2-2. Jordan?
I'm going 2-1, and I will say if Arsenal don't win this game, to Arsenal, if they don't win this game, even without Rice and Odegaard, they're not serious. Spurs are good, they're not that good.
Sorry, I just have to get you to develop that. What do you mean they're not serious? He means business this week, doesn't he?
I'm just saying, if Arsenal are supposed to be a title contending team, you go to Spurs and win.
No, but you're mugging Spurs off. Let's be realistic.
I believe so.
You're mugging Spurs off here.
It's a derby game as well.
Yeah,
Sorry to cut you, but it's a derby game. There's different dynamics.
No,
in the derby.
No. We don't do that. We don't do that. I hate that cliche. The form book goes out the window in the... No. It's untrue. Most derbies go with the form team.
Are you the form team? Just...
With the form team and the better team.
Yeah, but you've been the better team before, and not saying that you haven't won the game, but it's been a dogfight.
And I agree with Hugh. I mean, most derbies, Manchester City lost the FA Cup final to a Manchester United side that had been horrendous all season. It's not quite true to say derbies always go the way of the form team, is it?
Not always, but the vast majority of the time, the team who is better wins a derby. This form book at the window thing is a Sky Sports cliche myth that everybody trots out. It's just not true.
I agree with it.
But hold on a minute. The reason I think that you're being disrespectful to Tottenham is you said if we don't beat them, we're not serious. As if you're playing like a team at the bottom of the league. That's why I'm saying that you're being disrespectful, because it's not that if Arsenal even play well, they're guaranteed to beat Tottenham. Like they're not a terrible team.
They're not a terrible team, but City go there and win. Liverpool probably go there and win.
You mentioned
we're going to be in that category.
City have had the worst record against Tottenham. Has Guardiola ever won at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium? Never.
Okay, that's a difficult example to use because they're clearly a bogey team. But the point I'm making is that if you're trying to win a Premier League title, you go to Spurs and win. Not because they're rubbish, but they're not on our level.
This sounds more like heart over mind there, Jordan.
I think he does.
No, it's not.
It's so disrespectful towards Spurs. Spurs are a really good side. With yes,
who's their striker?
Listen, they've got a number of teams. They've got a number of players who can take responsibility for scoring goals. And actually, last season, without Kane, there was a stage of the season where they were scoring more goals than any other team in the Premier League. So I'm not going to go along with this whole nonsense that they're a weak side there for the taking. No chance.
I didn't say that. I said if Arsenal are serious, they win the game. Not because Spurs are rubbish, but because Arsenal are supposed to be going for the league.
But by the way, if you do lose this game, I know we had none of us are predicting that Arsenal lose the game. But if they lose, strange thing to say after 4 matches, but are you done?
Are you serious?
Can't be.
Because we got City next, away.
You know it's
So
September,
you then
right?
have to beat City away to stay in what is a race. You lose to Spurs,
And then lose
you then
to City.
have to win at City. You're done.
Yeah. It's true. He'd
Jordan,
be 8 points behind after 5 games, and the title's done.
It's a long season.
You're done.
It's a long season.
It's
Come
a long
on.
season.
So
Jordan,
let me ask you,
really?
Darren, do you think 8 points behind City, you're making that back up?
Stranger things have happened, Jordan.
There are 70
Come on,
games to
brother.
go.
Just look at his-
There are
City
cup
8
competitions,
points.
Champions League. There is so much
Why are
of
we
the
doing
season to go.
8 points behind City, you're done.
I think the issue for Arsenal, you can't mention Champions League and any of that stuff at the moment. You know, all the games that City are going to be playing, Arsenal are going to be playing as well. It's not like they're not in Europe and Man City are. So if there's going to be
but-
fatigue for City, there's going to be fatigue for Arsenal.
All of those things are true. I don't disagree in the slightest. But the fact is that the idea you could even contemplate suggesting that with 7, 8 months of the season to go, that anything is done and dusted is just ludicrous.
So I'll ask you again, Darren. Do you think a team can catch Manchester City 8 points behind?
What in
With 33
April?
games to
In
go.
April with a month to go, or in
Anytime.
yes, I do.
8
Yes.
points. You think City
Listen,
dropped 8
it's
points?
September. You have no idea what is going to happen to key players in the Manchester City side, just as we
Darren,
had no
they
idea
had
what
their
was
2
going
best
to
players
happen to
out last
Odegaard
season.
and Rice 10 days ago.
Right, but City had their 2 best players out for
Yeah.
3
2 to
and
3 months, yeah.
5 months,
Yeah.
and still won the title. Come on, we know we've seen this film before. Arsenal have to win this game.
Do you know what? I'm going to move on.
like it.
Let's
I like-
talk
I
about
like
the
it.
Ballon
That's strong,
d'Or.
though. I like
know
it.
you love that. Crazy. The Ballon d'Or is going to be decided in late October, and the shortlist has come out already.
The long list, you mean?
The long list. Forgive me.
Long list.
It is a short list,
Yeah.
but it's just 30 players long. Like, why is it
See,
so
this
long?
is the bad behaviour I part with every
Crazy.
week.
I'm not saying you're incorrect. Sorry.
30 players are on the
Short
long list.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, okay. I do just want to ask very quickly about Cole Palmer. He's on the long list. He hasn't played a minute of European football. Rodrigo, he's not on the long list. He helped Real Madrid to win the Champions League this season. Why do you think Cole Palmer's on and Rodrigo's not? I'll go with you, Jordan, first.
I don't know. This is the short answer. I think Cole Palmer had a phenomenal season last year, but the facts are that he shouldn't be on there ahead of a guy that won the Champions League. I've not checked his record for Brazil over the last 12 months, but I'd imagine he featured quite a bit for them as well. And they won the Copa America, didn't they?
No,
it was
Argentina. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. But that aside,
Yeah.
it's weird. It's weird that he's there above.
And to be clear, Cole Palmer is an exceptional talent, and I think he is going to play regular European football, elite European football soon, and he's going to carry all before him. I just think in the context of the last 12 months, it is quite strange, no?
No, absolutely. When I think about the Ballon d'Or and especially Cole Palmer, maybe it's a question for us on the panel. Do English players get more visibility across the world than other players? This is why they get forced into the limelight. They get forced into all different manners of conversation, because in the Euros, people were edging for Cole Palmer to start. You know, when he came on, he did great. And there was always a call for Cole Palmer to step up, to do things, to call him out. This is why he's been thrown into the conversation?
Interesting
Ballon d'Or?
point, actually, because I mean the Premier League is shown in over 200 territories around the world, and the popularity is sky high, and that would possibly be why he is in the consciousness of so many people around
He
the
plays
world.
for Madrid.
To
It's
Cole
not like he plays
Palmer?
for a team
Not
that's
yet.
Not Rodrigo. It's not like Rodrigo doesn't play for a team that's on TV a lot.
Do you know what
That's a
do
very
you know
good
the
point.
point that I'd honestly make about it? And I hate to say it. There's part of me that sees the 30 players and thinks, you know, EA Sports, FIFA 25, FC 25 or whatever, when we get round to Ballon d'Or time,
Other video games are available.
other football video games are available, but they'll be releasing special players on the game. And the other thing is, you get the feeling that, you know, they wanted to get around particular, like, obviously it's a lot of always players based in Europe, but they wanted to get around the different big leagues in Europe, nominate players from here or there, players from different backgrounds, get players from Ukraine, get players from England, get players from... you look at the list, there is genuinely no real rhyme or reason to about 25 players. We know they're all good players. There are many good players that aren't on the list, obviously, as well. So the list itself, for me, makes no real sense. And I don't know what it's for. Let's be honest. When there's one winner in any award, you don't need 30 nominees. 1/30 of the people nominated win the award is ridiculous. Let's be honest.
Hugh, I want to stick with you because I spoke to Vinicius Junior just ahead of the international break, and he said a number of very powerful, important things for black footballers around the world when he said, this season, 0 tolerance. If I get racist abuse, I'm walking off. Yeah. I know a lot of us have wanted to see that for a long time. We're not here for that. We don't want to see it. We don't want players to play through it. We don't want some of the meaningless gestures that we see so often. Are we reaching a watershed moment in football now?
We have to. That Real Madrid squad, I don't know what the characters are like in there. We know a little bit about Jude Bellingham more so than the others because he's playing for England, obviously. But, the moment I saw Mbappe arrive, I thought, wow, they've got, let's be honest, the biggest face, the biggest name in world football at the moment for me. Probably the best player in the world on his day. You've got Jude Bellingham, who for many people's become, in the last 18 months, the most famous player in world football, particularly the way he hit the ground running. And then you've got Vinicius Junior, again, one of the most famous players in the world, maybe the best player in the world as well. And Rodrigo, who you mentioned, players of colour. So importantly, wearing the badge of the most famous football club in the world, who've seen one of their teammates routinely racially abused in Spanish football. Now, yes, there are some that have been jailed for the abuse that they've given to Vinicius Junior. And for me, that may be even a more important step in terms of, one thing is getting the message out to the world about what is acceptable and what isn't, but it's important wherever you are in the world that people are punished for breaking the law in that
First time that's ever
fashion.
happened in Spain.
Exactly, first time it's happened. So that was a huge thing itself, and Spanish football fans might still go to the ground and feel that if they do racially abuse a player, that they'll get away with it. Those arrests and those imprisonments maybe still don't hit home for a lot of people because we know that there are football fans that go, it won't be me. I can shout abuse. No one's ever going to. The stewards aren't going to talk to me. People feel different, to what they see in the news, maybe slightly removed, but they can't be removed from the players walking off the pitch if they're in the stand. No one can, whether you're responsible for the abuse or not. And the rest of us around the world are going to see and feel that and talk about that. Column inches, all the discussion that probably should have happened previously will be done in a very different way if the Real Madrid players, if those players, Vinicius and Mbappe and Bellingham, decide to walk off the pitch at any stage. I'm not going to say that that's their responsibility. That's their choice and they've got an opinion in it. Obviously, I'm not here saying they have to do it. But if they choose to do that at any stage, if Vinicius is abused again, and we know how it personally affected him, if they choose to support their teammate by saying, no, enough is enough, watching Real Madrid and watching us, the talent that we have is a privilege, and we're going to deny you that privilege if you can't respect us, that's going to say a lot for world football. So it has to happen.
Well, the commercial power of the players involved in the Real Madrid team is a statement in itself. And when you look at across the team, Rudiger is someone who speaks out very stridently. Mbappe, just before the European Championships, was telling people to come out and vote and really using his platform to speak really powerfully about the threat that certain elements have in our society. And Bellingham is not short of a word or two in a very articulate way. I spoke to him a couple of years ago and he too was very strident about the issues that he's had as a young black man with racism and the way that he expects to experience it in the game. What kind of statement, Mahari, do you think it would make if they were to walk off? And where are we now? What would it for the lower profile players, impact would it have?
So I think the volume increases when you see such unity taken on such a magnitude scale. If you think about all the players that Hugh mentioned and called out, things as simple as just like their Instagram profile, the amount of people that are following and seeing and just kind of tracing and seeing what's happening in that space. The unity behind saying, I support my teammate and walking off is something that will just resonate throughout the entire world. And I think it sends a bigger message to everybody that's actually playing the game to focus in on these issues. And a lot of times when you think about race, especially black people, when there's a special issue when it comes to race, it's given back to black people to try and solve that issue, right? There's a power in advocacy and advocates that really kind of say, here is a white player, a white manager, a white leader in a particular organization. When they speak up for racial injustices, it sends even a stronger message. So yes, Vinicius Jr. for me is absolutely saying and doing the right things, and should the whole team walk up from there, the message cannot be ignored any further. And I think it will follow suit throughout the rest of the world, especially in the English Premier Leagues, definitely, because we know there are lots of players, especially black players, who are very strongly against racism and want to say things. And I think once that kind of goes over the line, you'll see it in the English Premier League, no doubt.
Jordan?
I agree. I think the constant putting the responsibility on black players to fight this fight is something that I've kind of taken on as like, no one's going to help us, so we've got to deal with it ourselves. But I agree that at what point do these so-called allies take on the burden to say, no, we're not going to let you carry that fight. We're walking off the pitch because we see this as wrong, and we're going to take the flak for once, and they being allies as well. Darren, Hugh, we've discussed this for years. You know my thoughts on this. I've been along of the thought of walking off the pitch. I'm of the point that's even more radical. Don't walk on the pitch. But that's never going to happen. So I understand that. But I think we're at a point now where the tide is slowly turning, and these individuals with massive profiles, massive power and influence are tapping into that. And the commercial value, some people discussed as well. As Hugh said, Real Madrid are the biggest club in the world. And if they take away the privilege, and it is a privilege to watch that football team play, to the supporters, it won't be long before the league authorities and the wider authorities, UEFA and FIFA, step in to do something about it as well.
Jordan, where does Vinicius stand for you? Because I think one of the things I said to him was, you're 24 years of age. This is not your job. Your job is to play football. You know, as young black men, fighting racism shouldn't be any of our jobs. The people that employ us and the spaces that we're in, it's their job to protect us. And in other industries, you do get that protection. Where does Vinicius Jr. stand for you? Because if you go through history, in a variety of sporting disciplines, there have been individuals prepared to speak truth to power, right back to Jesse Owens, Muhammad Ali, Colin Kaepernick, and now we have a young man in a country where he's had so much abuse since he was 18 years of age, basically standing up and saying, enough, I will not accept this. Where does he stand as a sporting icon?
Well, he stands as a huge icon for me. And what I love about him is that he seems to be understanding his power and his worth and his influence. And he's at worst intimating, if not saying, I will use that. And I think the figures you've named there, who have used their profile and their figure and their power for wider than sports, have done that as well. It wouldn't surprise me if I woke up on a Monday morning after a Madrid game on a Sunday, having played, to read that he walked off the pitch and the players followed him. That wouldn't surprise me. I think he's that sort of character. You've met him now, so you can speak to that more than me, but it wouldn't be like, oh my God. And just as a kind of a slight aside, but not, even Raheem Sterling joining Arsenal on a 1-year deal, I like that sort of figure is at my football club. We can talk about how good he is and what influence he will have and rare. But I like these black men that stand for more at my football club. That for me might not make any difference in terms of being in a Premier League, but it makes me look at my football club with a little bit more proud. So I put Vinny Jr. in the highest esteem right about now. And I think racism isn't going to stop. So it wouldn't surprise me if he led something that elevated him
Mahari.
beyond football.
Yeah, a true icon. Listen to the names that you mentioned. I think the power for me, when I think about the power of storytelling, right? Vinicius Jr. has a huge platform. And what he's done is used his pain to share why this is inappropriate and it's wrong. And he's used his platform, his craft, his skill set to really say, as much as I am a footballer first, I need to let you guys know that this is unacceptable. And I will stop my profession, stop my craft to let you know that this is the reason why this is not acceptable. And I think people suffer from that, and people will look into that and say, my goodness, I have to take this so serious because this is something that has affected my day out with my kids, because I've come to watch a game and here is the best player probably in the world that said, no, racism, I'm not having it, and my teammates are following me off. And just like you said, Jordan, the advocacy piece is so important, because you don't just want the black players walking off the pitch. You want every single person and the staff and the coach members to say, this is not appropriate and we are not going to play any more games until this is looked into properly.
You.
Jordan's got something to say. I'm happy to go afterwards.
Just briefly, sorry, before you come in, Hugh, I just love the fact that you've got arguably the three most high-profile football players in the world in the same 11, in Mbappe, Bellingham, and Vinicius Junior. That's a lot of power, and that's a lot of consciousness between those three black men. That if it does get on top, I trust they'll handle business.
Yeah, the only thing that I was going to say on it, just to go back on the point of how we see Vinicius Junior, I agree with everyone in terms of the respect that I've got for him, particularly at such a young age, to be taking it on, head on in this way, particularly when he's from Brazil. It's not his home nation. The idea of changing some negative things about culture in Spain isn't his fight at all. Maybe it's his fight in terms of football, and he feels that he needs to change football. But he's also, and he spoke to you, Darren, about living in Spain, about being in Spain. He likes the country, likes living there, but obviously this is one of the negative things that he feels a minority of football fans do, which kind of mars his experience there. But he could easily, as we all know, be on his way back to Brazil at the end of his career and never go back to Spain unless it's for a holiday, and it's not really his problem. So the fact that he's taking it on, I respect even more, because I could understand it more if it was Brazil's say. The only thing that I'd say, and we all know it, is that if Vinicius Junior drops off in terms of his form, in terms of the quality of football that he produces, there will be a stronger backlash against him from fans and probably certain sections of the media in Spain. We've seen it many, many times.
I don't know how much stronger it could be, because he's been vilified even since saying, look, this is what I'm prepared to do if I get the abuse anymore.
It will get worse.
Been abused 16 times in the last 2 years as well. If you think about the furore there that comes up here in England if a player gets abused once, and he's been abused 16 times. He's had effigies off bridges. He's had people on TV shows calling, and I will say this, and apologies if it's offensive, but they're calling him a monkey on TV. And these are realities that he has to deal with, go out and perform still on that basis.
Believe me, it would be worse. And it would come from, particularly, I hate to say it, but your own fans. Then when you're not playing well, everyone's on his side now, but believe me, things will change very quickly when it goes to the other side of things. We've seen players at Real Madrid hounded out for just being out of form, highly paid, out of form. Suddenly the fans aren't on your side anymore. So,
but we know, listen, players get booed and barracked in football.
Yeah.
That happens.
But I'm saying add this dynamic to it, and you'll see that
Spanish fans would be.
So you think that the section of fans that boo at other clubs and the sections of media that said things negatively about Vinicius Junior, you think that they don't exist within those who support and follow Real Madrid?
I think we're coming at the same thing in slightly different ways. All I'm saying is that I think it would be slightly unfair to add racism to genuine frustration that fans who are not that way inclined.
No, that's not my point.
That's not reacting.
Well, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that all of the fans are going to say it. So excuse me if I portrayed that. I'm saying that the ones who have the same views as the ones who are mistreating Vinicius Junior, but they support Real Madrid, currently maybe on his side or just silent in the crowds, you'll see them rear their ugly heads if he drops off form as well. So it could get worse for him, and that's what I hope doesn't happen.
The Ballon d'Or winner for you?
There's only two, really, for me.
Go on.
Rodri of Manchester City, Vinicius Junior of Real Madrid. So it'll be one of those two. I'll be happy if it was one of those two.
You took the words right out of my mouth. Definitely. I would say Rodri, being a Liverpool fan, but what Rodri adds to a team is one of those things that you very rarely find on such a consistent basis, no matter who he plays for, whether it be Spain or whether it be Manchester City. And I'm definitely Vinicius Junior.
Jordan.
It's upsetting to me because the Ballon d'Or isn't according to what I would how I would do it, right? The Ballon d'Or should be who's the best football player on the planet. But anyway, according to the rules of how it is, it's Rodri for me.
I think the Ballon d'Or this year is about what you do on the pitch and what you do off the pitch.
It's not.
And the fact,
Darren.
Well, the key words there are for me. You had your opportunity, and I have mine.
You asked who should win the Ballon d'Or.
And I'm telling you what I think.
Go on then.
I think, for me, the Ballon d'Or this year is about an exceptional level of performance despite the horrendous racist abuse that he has sustained, and a second decisive contribution to a Champions League final in 3 seasons. You cannot look beyond Vinicius. 15 goals in the Liga to help them to win the league, 6 goals in the Champions League. He's a game changer. Yes, Rodri's a fabulous footballer, but in key moments, Vinicius has stepped up. He's endured what he's had to endure. That is an absolutely insane level of mental intensity and concentration to be able to perform at that level when you consider what he's had to deal with. Absolutely the winner for me.
Do you think if he wins in his acceptance speech, he may well mention it, I imagine, but do you think the ceremony in presenting his nomination will reflect on some of those things that have happened to him?
Very possibly. Why not? Because when I did the piece for, I'll say it, CNN interview, I said there was a point during, there was a period, I think it was in March, where he was abused something like 4 or 5 times. He scored 6 goals in that period. You think about what it must take to put all of that out of your mind and to go onto the pitch and perform at an elite level, to score the goals, to assist goals, to shrug all of that off and go to work and do not just your best, but an awesome level of performance. I'm sorry, but you cannot look beyond Vinicius Jr. And I think anybody who looks at the bigger picture around him will agree he is the best player on the planet right now.
If you haven't seen Darren's interview with Vinicius Jr., you can go to his social media, CNN Sport on YouTube as well. Just type in CNN Vinicius Jr. and I'm sure you'll find it. He won't big himself up. Very, very good interview. Very good interview indeed.
And with that, we'll head to this break. Welcome back to the Whisper It Loudly podcast. We're here with Mahari Hay, who is a director in financial services. He's also the co-founder and CEO of the Community Corporate and Culture Awards, which take place in February 2025. We'll be supporting him all the way to that. And he's here to talk about finance and answer some of the questions that might exist, might not exist, but some of the issues around finance, because culturally, they have kind of reared their heads. And I remember we spent some time together, and we discussed 1 or 2 things. What are the biggest areas of concern that come up relating to young people, first of all, and finance?
I think young people are living in the moment where my mum used to say, you want microwave money. That's putting in the microwave and doing the bare minimum and getting your money as soon as possible. I think, she got me to transition from that way of thinking, and she said, put it in the pressure cooker and make it simmer. And that refers back to saving, putting your money aside so you have some things to kind of think back on and really kind of, what's the term that they use? Save your money for a rainy day.
Yes.
But when you're saving your money for a rainy day, where are you saving your money? Where are you putting your money? Are you stuffing it under the mattress? Are you keeping it in the house? Those types of things are where people kind of get that misconception.
Did you always save money as a kid?
I think for me, not having much money as a kid, right? So coming into money was always fantastic, whether it be, £10 and, coming from my uncle or my mum. I think it was just being able to kind of get my hands on some cash. For me, growing up in Jamaica, very, really humble beginnings, right? And then if you think about transitioning from a country where you've not had much, and then you're moving into this huge corporate world, seeing trains go underground, you're seeing double-decker buses. I'm finally wearing long trousers and not shorts anymore, right? I think my kind of focus in on finance came from a very kind of surreal moment for me, and was seeing my mum being declined finance, right? So it's a very proud moment.
Tell us the story.
I won't name the high street bank, but it was, if you think about it, I must have been 13, 14. And she was a very proud woman, you know, Jamaican, very, you know, West Indian, but we wanted to head down and she wanted to open up a bank account for me.
What year was it?
And this was, I'm talking early 90s.
Okay.
Right? Early 90s. And we've gone down, never forget, in Hackney, and we've gone down to it. But because she wasn't able to articulate herself on what she actually wanted, become very flustered quite quickly, she was easily dismissed. So I'm watching on this very proud woman be declined or just kind of easily kind of brushed off. And we left that high street branch, but she never really spoke about it. But I could see the look on her face that she was very disappointed that she couldn't do something for me.
How old were you at the time?
I would have been probably about 13, 14 years old.
Okay.
Right. And I didn't open a bank account again until my first year of university, which would have been 4 years later, sorry. And that was because we didn't talk about it. When I say talk about it, we didn't talk about finances. It was very much a taboo subject. If you live in this house, the parents handle the finances. There wasn't a element of this is what you should think about when you grow up, right? It was always, if you get some money, try and save it because who knows where the next one's going to come from, right? You were taught to work hard. And again, anything that I share today has been my own lived experience. So when I articulate it and bring people along my own journey, it's about getting people to understand. And I have a term where I say, I'm trying to get our community, and when I say our community, the black community, to learn how to speak the language of high street banks. So when they're able to try and gain access to finance, whether it be from a personal or business perspective, they know exactly the things to say, or I can help them to connect the dots.
Hugh's got a question.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, if you were in that position now, then if you were going into a bank with a young adolescent child, what would you be advising the parent to not even necessarily do, but how to present themselves to get, whether it is just a cash card or a savings account for a youngster? And actually, it's I don't want to ask about specific products, obviously, but how does it work now? Like, has it changed at all since our day when we were younger?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think banks develop specific products for specific age ranges, because the more products that you can sell obviously helps towards your business. So there are specific things that are linked to child savings account, child bank account. And so when people bring them in or bring your children in, there might be a particular rep on there to say, oh, there's someone coming with a child. This is my opportunity to get this across. Like probably many people, there are some people that still go into branches, but there's some people who wouldn't even imagine going to a branch because they can do it on their phone, right?
He asked that question about what would you suggest in terms of
if you were a parent now taking a child into a bank, you know, you said your mum maybe didn't know to articulate herself in the way that she wanted. What would you recommend to people in terms of that articulation?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there are lots of smaller communities, whether it be online, but I say sometimes people don't know where to find or where to go. I think treat platforms such as your YouTubes and different types of things. If you think of what that represents, there's so many small kind of master tips and classes that you can kind of dial in and say, right, I'm looking to do this, I'm looking to do that. And when I go in to have these conversations, what do I need to say? For me, when I take it on and I think about my daughter, because she's so tech savvy, I'm talking about my eldest, I think it's easier for me to kind of point her in the right direction to say, if we're opening a bank account, I know, because I work in that space, I can do it online quite easily, right? I consider myself a young parent, being, early 40s, right? But you might have some people who prefer to speak to somebody in person,
yes,
right? And I think it's about being clear in what you want to say. I've banked with you for X amount of years. It's now for me to bring my child into this, and I want to speak to somebody who can do that. I think there's a power of speaking with authority of what you want, and people are more... Customer service is huge now, because one bad customer service experience could be the downfall of a particular organization, right? So I think people are more receptive of what people have to say. There's more time because there's more emphasis on customer service.
We've got you for around about half an hour, so I want to squeeze so many questions in. One of the things that we discussed in private was the fact that so many young people, and this isn't colour or culture specific, don't have pensions. But there are quite a lot of black young people who don't have pensions. Is that right?
Yeah. So again, for me...
And why? Why?
I don't think... When people think about pensions, I try to break it down in a practical sense. So if you think about somebody says, right, Darren, here's £100. You can have £100 now, Or you can take £80 and put aside £20, and I'll give it to you with a little bit of interest in 20 or 30 years. When you break it down like that, a lot of times people are thinking, well, I'm living in the moment now and I need my money now. And I think for me, the teachings that I've had through getting a pension, a lot of things are the elements of, I have a young family, right? I have a wife, I have a daughter, I have a son on the way. These are things where I'm thinking about my future and want to say, I want to know that I have a nest egg. And I think we need to be more expressive when sharing those views on what an actual pension represents for young people and what it means for your future. And I think being able to kind of lean into that are the things that people need to know. I think if you don't know, it becomes more harder to kind of digest.
I do think like social media in a way plays a part in this, in that the pensions aren't sexy, but you also have a lot of influence on the internet that says, take your money, make it work. So go and, create your own business, or go and invest it, or, and everyone's saying, well, yeah, the pension would be okay, but that's the kind of way to have a small nest egg. But the way for you to have financial freedom, and the way for you to retire when you're 55 instead of 65 or 75 in our case, probably, is to actually take that 20% and you can move it here, and your money has to be active. And you hear all these phrases around, you can't just leave it in an account, even if it's showing you some returns, because you could get bigger returns if it was moving, if you like, faster through the food chain and all that stuff. You get those messages. Maybe I get them, algorithms are different. Maybe you're seeing kittens, and dogs playing around on your algorithms, but on my algorithms, and I'm obviously a bit older, so I'm wary of those things, very wary of those things. But younger people might not be, particularly when they see, at least outwardly, people in their age group, under 25 years old, with flash cars, big houses already, making big money, and saying, well, by the way, if you just take your spare time and you become, I don't know, a digital marketer, or even if, Gary V's there saying, listen, I made all this money by buying, replica cards and going to garage sales, and they're going, hold on a minute, instead of just working 9 to 5 and putting my money in a pension, there is another world to finance that I need to be in if I'm to be truly financially successful. As great as a pension sounds.
Yeah, listen, amazing, right? And I think not everybody can be an influencer.
But I guess I didn't ask the question, but my question is really, is that a reality, or is that just a falsehood for most people in terms of that other side of making money?
Yeah, I think it plays on both sides. So I think me being in the financial services sector for so long has given me both sides of the coin, and transitioning into the digital age where my algorithm's probably is a little bit closer to yours than Darren's and the cats and stuff like that. You always see
what's wrong with cats?
The music behind them speaking and telling that you can do this and you can do that, and absolutely, you can absolutely do that. But I think for me, when I think about and I look at my family, I think about one day I'm going to grow old, right? And I want to be able to say, I've been putting aside something for a long time, and this is what we have, something to fall back on.
But here's the thing, Mahari, a lot of people quite simply look at, well, I want to enjoy it now, because when I get to 65, 70, I'm not going to enjoy it in the same way as I would do now. So why should I wait until then? I'm not endorsing that view. I'm just saying that's a view that exists.
So Darren, definitely, I think there's a lack of understanding. Maybe that's not the right word, but I think there is a responsibility for those who have the platforms and have benefited from pensions. And I'm not talking get somebody who's in that age range now who are enjoying the benefits of their pensions. I think there's a responsibility for those who are younger, who are thinking about their future and thinking about what this represents. So let's say I do get that £100 and I do want to take £70 of it and invest it now and do all the investments and do all that. But also, smart business sense tells me that I'm going to put aside a £5 that goes into the pension pot. So when I've done this and I'm making all these deals, I'm doing all these transitions, and I'm telling all these stories, I know that there's something in there. And maybe, it's a Jamaican mum that kind of said, you need to think about your future. That's kind of stuck with me along the way. And I think I'm passing that down onto my own children to think about, yes, absolutely, live in the now, utilize what you can, but also think about the future.
We're talking to Mahari Hay, a director in financial services, and we're enjoying the benefit of his experience in the sector for more than a decade now. And I think one of the things that has come up, Jordan's got a question before I give you mine, actually. Jordan.
Sorry, I got a bag, but I'm never sure on time. One of my questions, Mahari, was, What do you think of the phrase black business? Because I run a business, right?
Good question. It's a good
Great question.
I have at times when I'm in meetings or talking to people, will find myself using the phrase, I have a black business. Or people apply it to me and I agree with it. And I just wonder if you think actually it's a detrimental term, or if the financial sector is happy to invest in particular businesses that align with certain cultures, and it's actually a good thing.
Just before you answer that, Jordan's business is called Blackademic, so it's hard to really remove himself from being called a black business. Maybe he should have thought about the name if he had an issue with it. But anyway, Mahari,
Blackademics for real.
Fair point.
Hugh and Jordan are available as a double act for weddings.
First of all, I love the name Blackademics. I'm going to
Thank you
Google
very
that
much,
and
brother.
find out more about that. But okay, for me, when I think about the term black business, I think, and I'll take it back, right? I think when they murdered a man across the pond 5-6 years ago, and I'm
Yes.
referencing George Floyd, the corporate space woke up to a lot of the racial injustices that black people were facing, right? And they decided to launch initiatives and programs that said, we need to face into this. What black people and black colleagues and black people that are already in that environment said, now you see what we were talking about. So they thought, we need to align ourselves with this purpose, right? And black businesses have prospered since they've shifted the narrative to say we need to do more in this space. But black people and black business owners were shouting this many, many decades to say we need more support from financial organizations for us to help us grow and better the communities that we're from.
Okay, so go back further. I want you to talk about the concept of partners that some people watching might not understand, but tell us why they came into existence and tell us what the difficulties are in terms of moving people away from those ways of saving money towards the orthodox, if you like, way of saving money. Just talk about that.
So when I think about partner, for those who don't know what partner is, I think in some cultures, I think in Nigeria, they call it susu. It's a scheme where within your local community, people, families will take their wages, whether it be a weekly or on a monthly basis, and put together into one overall pot. And then every week, or depending on what scheme that you're in, every month, one particular family or person gets what they call their draw.
And it came about because
that particular community, the black community, especially with the reference partner from the West Indian community based, from Windrush times, when they travelled over to the UK, they couldn't get access to capital, especially from high street banks. So if you think about it, there is a huge element of community spirit, even a bigger element of trust, because at any point where they could be £200-400 in a pot, and you're talking, if you go way back to the 50s and 60s, that's a considerable amount of money. And if you're talking that's the only way that the black community get access to capital, it's quite astounding, right? And there are still schemes that are going on till this day. And I never forget, I used to have to walk from Tottenham down to the backs of Ferry Lane with my mum's £50 in my pocket as a young child to go and drop off to this lady to say, we can't wait for our draw because my mum wanted to buy a new sofa or she wanted to do something for the house. And this is a scheme that could go full circle, take you 4-5 months until it gets back around to you, depending on the amount of people
so
that's
you
in the
just
scheme.
wait until your turn comes around.
What happens if somebody disappears mid-draw, Darren?
But that's what you're talking about, the element of trust that was involved.
Absolutely.
How difficult has it been to get people to move away from that way of saving money towards orthodox banking so that they can understand finance, understand the kind of thing that you've been talking about throughout the show?
And that's where it comes down to trust, right? I think people have lost an element of trust when it comes to dealing with high street banks.
Lost.
But you know what? That's quite an interesting point, because with partners, the money is the money. Whereas with the banks, there's interest. There's so many small things that they take off that you end up paying if you are in arrears.
It's not only that, though. It's everything that Mahari's been saying in terms of a lack of access. Those banks have not been for us. So we never trusted them because we saw others from different communities in the UK being able to walk straight into the bank and access capital to start a business. for me, a lot of, I'm Caribbean background, obviously. I don't know, people from the African community feel different about it or not. But and listen, maybe there are other immigrant communities in the UK that have had this experience. It's obviously just the one that's closest to mine. But if the banks weren't ready to give us money for whatever reason, what it has led to is, generationally, a lack of capital being invested in our communities within the UK, which obviously has far wider reaching repercussions in terms
if you join the dots,
social mobility.
Like Jordan was saying, if you join the dots, that's why the phrase black business has come about, because black people had to create their own businesses as a way of generating capital.
It's not just that. I think the term black business has come about because of a need for extra support for black businesses. We want to give them that label so that we know who to support, because we know they don't get the support from other areas. So it's things like finance that actually the reason that we go, oh, do you know what? There are banks out there that go, we need to invest in black business because we know that we haven't for decades. It's just a historical thing.
I'm going to move you on quickly because obviously I want to get you in, and I do want to get Jordan's questions in as well. He's got, as he was saying, he's got a bag of questions. So Jordan.
No, but Mahari didn't answer my first question.
Sorry.
Because you interrupted him.
And
I want to know, do you think it's a good term or not?
So you put me on the spot, right? Because I think a differentiator, being called and labelled a black business, yes, it's one term. But for me, I don't want to be seen as a successful black man. I want to be seen as a successful man.
But I disagree with you there. Our bromance is over. Because the reality of our society is that you are a black man. The thing that makes you different is the thing that inspires so many people who suffer from exactly the kind of thing we highlight on a regular basis. We see on TV, we read about in newspapers, we hear on the radio, and the reality of our society is it is unequal.
Yeah.
So if as a black man you are successful, you have to be able to lean into the thing that makes you different. If as a woman you are successful, I know some people say, I don't want to be seen as a successful woman, I want to be seen as but you are somebody who can inspire other people in a difficult situation to be able to triumph and be successful.
But I don't need to explain that when I'm saying, Darren, is to tell somebody I'm a successful black man. By looking at me, doing your research on me and seeing me, people are like, that is a successful black man. When I'm described or where I'm showcased, people are saying, this is a successful man because I'm an inspiration to...
But I think there's a difference between being a successful black man and business. Business, world over, is just business. Yeah. So actually I see Jordan's point about, well, should it be black business or business? I think there's a big difference between a business and a man who because I saw with the NFL player who was arrested the other day outside the stadium.
Tyreek Hill, Miami Dolphins.
His status counted for nothing.
Yeah.
I remember when Daniel Kaluuya was talking about the Oscar that he'd won, and he was asked whether it opened more doors for him, and he said, I'm still black. And that's the reality. Whatever you achieve in this world as a black man, people still weaponize your colour against you. We've seen at the very highest level with Barack Obama and the attacks on him based on his race. So I think those things will always exist, and there's a big difference between being successful as a black man and black business.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of people that kind of stay in tune with me as an individual, right? Any speech, because I public speak a lot and I get up on stage, and whether I'm wearing a suit or if I'm wearing a jeans and a t-shirt, I have my Jamaican flag hanging out my back pocket. And Darren, you will see this because I'm very in tune in my culture and where I've come from, right? And what I want to bring to the stage is, here's a true, authentic version of Mahari, who a lot of times, sometimes people have wanted me to downplay. And that's been to their own detriment. And I thought to myself for a long time, am I trying to fit in, or do I actively want to stand out, to showcase, here's some excellence on show here, who is willing to showcase where he's from without being kind of watered down version of himself. And I think when I say I want to be seen as a successful man is because, one, my first goal is to inspire young black male and female people who are driving and wanting to make a real difference. And then once we get to that platform, it's saying, this is what I've done, this is what we've achieved together, who else are we going to inspire?
But sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, because it's interesting because, you obviously said I don't want to be seen obviously people see that you're black, but you don't want to be almost described as a successful black man. You're
kind of veered into a different debate here.
No, but I'm just taking it back to the group that you founded. And please excuse me because I haven't got the exact name in front of me.
He's co-founder and CEO of the Community Corporate and Culture Awards.
Yeah, so it's interesting because it sounds like it is about our community and our culture, and not exclusively based on race, obviously, but definitely feels like that's an important thing for you, despite the fact you said, that's not directly how you'd like to be seen.
Yeah, absolutely. And if we focus in on just briefly on the Community Corporate and Culture Awards, when I thought about this and, kind of working closely, shout out to my business partner, Mexi Thomas, thinking about the Community Corporate and Culture Awards, it was about how do we reignite the spirit of community up and down the country. And if you think about community, it's not just the black community that makes Britain an amazing place to be. It's all the different cultures and heritage and themes that kind of bring us together, and that's what we wanted to do,
including white allies and
absolutely.
White members of the community.
So when we say we want to celebrate people in that space when it comes to community, it's about bringing people together and showcasing that. You may have 2 black West Indians who are driving this agenda, but it's the power of what community means. The country's been through a lot of the last couple of years, from COVID to the riots and cost of living, all these wonderful, not even one, just really difficult things. It's about bringing people together to say we are stronger together, and you're trying to recognize people for the things that they're doing behind the scenes that they normally do not get recognized for.
We have so many questions for you. I've just got one more. If you have a question for Mahari Hay, I want you to send it to us. Leave it in the comments, leave it in the chat. We can get him back here. We can get him to answer all of your questions. I do want to talk about inheritance tax because so many people fall victim to it because of that lack of knowledge around its existence. And the context of it is so many people of a certain age are left property by their parents who pass on. And there are people across a range of cultures who, to mitigate against that, they take steps earlier than they would wish to. And often it's not a subject that people even want to get into, because if you have to think about that, then obviously something not very nice has happened within your family. But the whole concept of inheritance tax, do you think there's enough understanding around it?
So it's not my field of expertise, but because I'm always thinking about the future and thinking about different types of things. So for me, and again, what has worked for me is because there is a lack of understanding. And for me, one of my stories was based on my mother having a lack of understanding on how to do things when it comes to articulating herself in a financial sense, made it difficult for her to make the right financial decisions or, have the right conversations. I think things around inheritance tax, do the research, ask the right questions. I would say utilize me to help point you in the right direction. And I think when Hugh made a joke about trust, right? How do you build trust in the financial services sector? Right? Black academics, how do they gain access to capital from high street banks? What plays an important role are figures like myself and other black leaders in this space. When black academics and other black businesses come knocking, the trust is built off because they're looking to say, here is another black man doing a fantastic thing. Surely they won't steer me wrong. And I'm sharing this story because I've seen other people say the reason why I've come to this bank is because I've seen you do so much wonderful things, and you've said that you'd help me connect the dots into the right places. So I think it's about connecting with the right people who understand and can relate to you to help you answer the questions that you have. And I think that's why I'm here. And like you said, if people have questions and want to know who to speak to and help them connect the dots, I'm more than happy in the financial sense to help them connect the dots.
So we basically need a black bank. Let's be honest, guys. We need a black bank. We need the finance of Africa or Jamaica or Caribbean in just to come and offer us that product, a building that we can walk into and see people like us and faces that we can possibly trust a little bit.
Don't let Jordan name it though, because he will just call it the black money man. That's what he'll probably call it.
Man. Where money there?
Or you could be like Darren and just keep it all in the Bahamas.
He's lying. Season 2 of Mahari Hay and the Whisper It Loudly pod is coming soon. In all seriousness, please do leave us your questions. There are so many. We don't have time to get through them all, but we will have him back here on the pod to talk about his favourite football team. Try and guess what it is.
Do I tell him?
Should we?
It's up to Mahari. You know.
Yeah, of course, Liverpool. And there's a real reason behind why I'm supporting Liverpool. You know, like I said, born in Jamaica, moving to England. One Jamaican player that I knew of anyway from Jamaica transitioned over, and when we landed here, he was playing for Liverpool, Johnny Barnes.
There you go. So we'll see how Liverpool get on when Mahari returns. We hope you will return next week when the Whisper It Loudly pod is back. More subjects, more laughter, more debate, and Jordan will be in the studio as well as Troy.
Can I just say, in terms of access to money, if you'd like to sponsor the podcast, also get in touch with us too. You know, we're welcome. We're welcome it.
YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, you'll find us in a variety of places, and we'll be here. So we'll see you soon.